We are live. It's Friday, and you know you missed me for the last 2 weeks, right? I missed you guys. I kind of enjoyed the break, but at the same time, it felt weird not to be live every Friday. So if you don't know, 2 weeks ago I was scheduled to have a guest, and he's a trials presentation guy. So at the last minute he had to cancel, but don't worry, I rescheduled him for a couple weeks from now. And so I took that as a sign that I should focus on what I needed to get done before I went on vacation. And then I went, the following week, I went out of town to, it was my first trip in about 5 years to the West Coast. And it was my first time, I should say, flying into Portland, Oregon. So I was in Portland for like a hot second. And then I went over to Vancouver, Washington. So it was beautiful. Got to see a bunch of friends that I learned how to live stream with. After knowing them for a year, I got to meet them in person, so it was pretty darn cool. So I'm really excited to be back. And I have a question for you for today. Today's question of the day is, let me know, for your legal career, have you mostly worked in law firms or service providers? One or the other. For me, it's law firms. But I'm curious, for those of you that are showing up today, is it mostly law firms or service providers for you? Okay, we got a couple people saying hello already. Nicole's here saying hello. Hi, Nicole. Good to see you again. Christine is here. Christine was on my show the last time I had a show, the last episode. It was a very inspirational episode, and I think the same is going to be today. So, Christine, thanks for coming on the show. You did a great job. Okay, so Nicole's answering the question of the day, which is mostly law firms. Sarah Fraser is saying law firm over on YouTube. And Christine, law firms for all of the 23 years except for 2 years and an in-house tech company. Really? Is that true, Christine? Only 2 years on the service provider side? Nicole is saying, good to see you too. Christine is saying, greetings and salutations from San Diego. Reth, good to see you again. Service provider for about 10 years before going into a law firm. Oh, so that's interesting, because I know when you start out on the service provider side, a lot of people want to get into a law firm, and it can be an adjustment because it's a completely different work environment. So that's interesting. It's almost easier to go from law firm to service provider because you already know like what the work. I found it advantageous because I already know how the legal teams work, and then when I was on the vendor side, I had that connection to the client, so to speak. I'll use both hands because I knew what it was like to be inside the law firm. Christine is blushing because I was complimenting her. Oh, right, Christine, that's right. Okay. Yep, I remember. Okay. All right, so let me know for you if it was mostly law firms or service providers. And while I have you, before we get started with the show, I want to talk to you about, I'm getting some emails or some messages all over the place, all different ways we can communicate with each other these days about when the next show is or whether or not there is a show or whatever, because I took a break. And even when I took a break, I only have so many avenues to let people know that I am taking a break. So for instance, if I email everybody, not everybody who watches the show is on my email list, so they won't get it, you know? And then some people follow me on social media, and they're looking for I always promote each week, and some people look for that, and if they don't see it, then they're like, okay, is she having a show or not? So I wanted to remind you guys that there is a website. There is a website just, about the show, LegalTechMastery.com. And the beginning of it is just a welcome video that I put up here, a promotional video, which you can watch. It's kind of cute. And then right here, I talk about that it's Friday, then I talk about the time, And then you can see in this middle section right here, this is always here. It's a table that shows you what the schedule is. So even if I'm going to be out of town for a speaking gig or something like that, I'll put a row there in the table that explains, that I won't be here because of, being out of town. So I did have that. I had it there when I was going to be out of town, and I also had it when the guest canceled. So this is the place to go if you're wondering and you're not on my email list or following me on social media. You just are one of those people that just, shows up for the show. So as you can see, we have Adrienne today, and Mike is next week, and he's the trial presentation guy. So just wanted to let you guys know. Also on this page is a place to sign up to get email notifications, and then all those past seasons are on here too. So just wanted to let you know that LegalTechMastery.com is the place to go if you're wondering what my schedule is and stuff like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the show. Welcome to the Legal Tech Mastery Show. I almost flubbed that. Legal Tech Mastery Show. You would think I know how to say legal by now. My name is Amy Bowser-Rollins, and I'm really excited to have my guest here today because I met Adrienne virtually. I've never met her in person, so this is my first time seeing her. I haven't even been at a conference at the same time and been able to give her a big hug. So this is my first time being able to see her, sit across the table from her, so to speak, in the live streaming world, and share her with you, because last week we had Christine talking about taking initiative. Here's another person in my life that totally took initiative and made it happen for her. So let me go ahead and bring Adrienne on right now. Hey, Adrienne.
Hi, how are you?
Say hi to everybody and tell them what about your career path so far in the legal industry.
Well, hello, everybody. I started out as a paralegal a long time ago. And, excuse me, 1 minute. I'm so sorry. I'm excited. I started out as a paralegal probably almost 30 years ago. And I'd say 24 years in, I decided I wanted to make a change. And I decided that I wanted to enter directly into litigation support with no formal training or experience in litigation support and no technical background. I just thought that that side would offer me so many more additional growth opportunities than what I was experiencing as a trial paralegal. Mm-hmm. And I just put caution to the wind and took that leap.
Okay. All right, let's catch up on the comments here. So Christine is saying, I don't know if you know Christine. She's in San Diego. Everyone thinks law plus tech equals patents. Me too. Then I found e-discovery. That's
exactly. True. Exactly.
Jennifer is saying hi from Missouri.
Hi, Jennifer.
And Wade is answering the question of the day, 50-50 with law firms and service providers. Wade was on the show a few weeks ago. Really good episode. Lots of sharing his tools that he likes. Ankit, my teammate in India, is staying up late to be here today, so that's pretty cool. Jerica is saying hi. Jigna, hi, good to see you here live. Jigna is a friend here in D.C., also a former Georgetown student. Cassandra saying hi. Hi, Cassandra. Good to see you. And then Nicole's responding to something you already said. That's pretty gutsy, which is true.
Yes, it was.
And then Jigna, what made you think there were more opportunities? Jigna's got your first question for you.
Well, quite frankly, if you're a paralegal and, there's only so far you can go, you can become a senior paralegal and, you may have more responsibilities in terms of managing your cases, managing just teams, getting premier choice of trials, doing all the great things, but that is what you are. You are a paralegal. There's nowhere for you to go unless you really want to go into management or something different. And for me, it meant basically shifting gears a little bit and going into the technical side, because there were more opportunities. I could work as, I could be an analyst and kind of drill down and have and get into load files and creation of that. I can go into forensics and get certified and learn how to collect data, or I could go into project management, which is what I did because it seemed like a natural transition, using my skill set from the law firm side and managing and sort of, paralegal, you're sort of a project manager anyway. Your goal is to keep that ball rolling. So it's the same sort of skill set as a e-discovery project manager. The ball is here, and I got to get it to point here, and you just move it down the road. It's just a different set of skills. I would call soft skills come into play more, and then you need that technical side so you can communicate between the attorneys and your tech team.
That's so true.
So it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so the trick here, though, is what I put in the title for this episode, is that you weren't just a paralegal for 20 some odd years and then, switched over to a technical field. You actually, when I looked at what you did on each position, you were very tech savvy. So you were actually doing lit support tasks. You were managing databases. You were dealing with hundreds of custodians of ESI. You were managing document reviews and productions and everything. So can you remember when you first realized that you were tech savvy?
Yes, when e-discovery hit almost 20 years ago, I had a production I needed to do, and the production required me to, drill down into file extensions, file types, custodians, get the families together, figure out why you had orphans, and I was able to handle that and handle it successfully, and I realized, hey, I might have the acumen for this, or I might actually have the aptitude to handle this.
Okay. Nicole's asking a question that we're about to answer. Did you switch firms, or did you go work for a lit support company? So we're getting ready to answer that, Nicole. So one of the firms that you worked at was Bartlett Beck. And I didn't realize that till I went and looked and prepared for this episode. And I don't remember what year it was, but it was a hell of a long time ago. I was at DLA Piper. I was in lit support. But I remember reading about Bartlett Beck this and Bartlett Beck that in terms of being innovative in terms of law firms, thinking outside the box. I remember they were one of the first ones to tout that they were doing alternative fee arrangements. They talked about technology they'd like to use. So I was just curious, what was it like to work there?
It was amazing to work there. They were definitely on the cutting edge of technology. Trials there were just phenomenal. It was the way they did trials was completely different than any kind of trial that I had been on up until that point. They had a tried and true system that worked for every case. And it was just amazing to see lawyers embrace technology, because so often my law firm experience has been lawyers have somewhat rejected technology. They've been slow to adopt. But here was a firm where everybody was just excited about anything that had to do with technology and would add to their efficiency.
Wow, I'd love to work there still.
I still think it's a great place.
Because we talk about, we in the legal tech realm talk about how we wish lawyers would embrace technology. We've mentioned it many times on this show already. And the fact that they're already pro, at least they have an open mind to it, that's pretty darn cool.
Exactly.
Okay, yes. So when we were doing our test run for the tech to make sure that we were okay for today, earlier this week, a few days ago, we decided that we should tell our story of how we met, because there's a bunch of people that I've met virtually, they just send that first email. And it's happened recently again. I've gotten to know two people really quickly in the past 2 months, sending, a very emotional email to me, and then that started our friendship. So why don't you tell us how you remember how we first met?
Well, I was thinking of making this change, and I realized that I had to educate myself on what exactly litigation support was and get used to the acumen and all the lingo and all that stuff. So I did Google searches, and I ran across litigation support guru. And I was amazed that this existed, that all my answers were actually on this webpage. So that is how we met. I reached out to you and I explained to you what I was attempting to do. And I wanted to know if it was okay if I could ask you questions. And I thanked you for having this wonderful webpage. And that started 2012.
I know. So then
Wow.
I looked it up after we had that discussion the other day. I searched for your emails, and it was March 2012, which actually I had just started Litigation Support Bureau. I just started the website September 2011. So this
Wow.
is like, there's a couple other people that I've come in contact with those first few months that I'm still in touch with today. So that's pretty darn
Wow.
cool because we're in 2018, so it's pretty long
Yes.
ago. So
Yes.
I refreshed my memory of, sort of the play-by-play of us meeting, and I wanted to share it with you guys today because take what we're going to tell you today and then multiply it by, X number, because this is how I get to know people. They get up the courage to send me an email and ask me a question. And that starts this whole flood of, just checking in. It could be a little Q&A. It could be checking in. Even Adrienne, I've been like, every few years, I'm like, how you doing? Just checking in.
And I
Right?
appreciate that so much. I really
Yeah.
do. Thank you.
Okay, so my first email that I showed was a comment that you made on the blog. So that was my first introduction to you, which was my article about how we shouldn't fix vendor deliverables. So that was my first, there's Adrienne. Who's Adrienne? And the next thing you know, I get an email in my inbox that you actually did the homework. So I'm going to switch
Yes.
to another view right here, and then I'm going to pull up this homework assignment that I sort of I remembered that I had it, but I didn't remember what it said. So, do you remember reading this and like responding to it, or am I bringing it back to you right now?
You're bringing it back to me right now. I
So,
do remember this.
go
I
ahead.
do.
I'll just remind you because people can't really read it, but it basically just says look through your job descriptions, and if you have any questions, let me know and I'll answer them. So, next thing I know, I'm getting this message from you. Look at that. April 2012.
Oh my God.
So you're saying I've been a litigation paralegal for 24 years, and the last 10 you've been an accidental project manager, which I'm sure I cracked up. Um,
Yes.
and then you said I keep coming across references to SQL. How does that come into play? Do you remember this?
I do. But what's amazing to me is that I didn't know what SQL was.
At the time, because you don't know
Yeah,
until
at
you
the
know,
time.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. But now I'm like, wow, I was really a novice.
Then I responded, and this is typical of, me helping somebody. I do this all the time. I send them as much information as I can and a bunch of links. You guys don't need to read this, but this is me explaining what SQL is. And then this is Adrienne responding saying, oh, I already use Access. I'm very familiar with this, and I might take a course in SQL. But then look at the third paragraph, you guys. She was like, it is possible for people to enter into the field. There are different avenues for each individual. You just have to figure out yours. I think that's awesome. I think that was a great attitude to have. Do you remember this time frame? Because it's April 2012. I think were you just about to leave the law firm, or had you just done it? Do you remember?
I, I think I was just about to leave the law firm. I was probably interviewing, going through
Okay.
the interview phase. But I still believe that there's so many ways to enter into this space. You just have to figure out which one is right for you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you did the homework, and then the next thing I have is that you were on the job at your first lit support job, which was a service provider, and it was funny. I'm showing this because it happens over and over for me. And you can see at the bottom, I say that's the $1,000,000 question. But you were like, okay, I'm staring at this load file. It has a bunch of gibberish in it. You were asking if there's a load file checklist. Like, how do I interpret this file? How do I make sure it is the way it's supposed to be? And I pointed you to an article that I have that's been read many, many times about how to break down what a text file is or what a load file is. And do you remember this?
I do because I actually printed that article, I cut and pasted it, put it in a notebook, and I used that as my guide on how to read load files, which now is second nature.
Right,
I know
right,
exactly what I'm looking at.
right. It's so funny to go back and remind myself our first interactions, because that's like, a couple months back and forth. And then you were at this first service provider, so you'd been in a law firm you were at, do you remember, like 5 or 6 law firms over a 20-year period? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I lived in 2 different states, so
Okay.
yeah. So some in Texas, then back to Illinois, and now back to Texas.
Okay. And then you finally go to a service provider, and then your
Yes.
first job is diving head into Relativity. And I'll let you explain what it was like, but I just want to tell everybody that here's what I remember, and I still remember to this day, although I misremembered the total. She shot me an email that said, because I think it was a checking in email, and she said that she was managing 70 Relativity cases over an 8-month period. Like, she'd only been there 8 months, and she was managing 70 Relativity matters. So, and then you're also really excited about getting the LitWorks certification.
Yes.
Which is something that DTI's sister company, LitWorks, offers. So, I want to talk about that. What was it like going to your first e-discovery provider?
It was a culture shock. It was completely different than anything I had experienced in a law firm. I realized that I was just so far out of my wheelhouse and how much I didn't understand or know about the litigation support side of things. But working for a vendor, the size of the vendor that I worked for was the best thing I did, because you get a 360-degree perspective of how litigation support works. I am sitting there side by side and next to forensics collections people, analysts, processors, all of this. And you really understand, and you get to see how each individual or each section or phase of the EDRM is actually materializes and what the roles are. So for me, my best move was to move to a large e-discovery vendor and kind of jump in. And I have to add, they did give me 70 cases to manage in Relativity. I managed them poorly, but I am far better now.
But still, I mean, that's a lot. And you're not the only person that's told me this. You finally get the job you think you want, but you don't have the experience. And then a lot of times you don't get a good mentor inside that company, wherever you go, right? So if you have somebody
Exactly.
who's willing to mentor you and, sort of buffer the protection, give you the protection and buffer from top management, that's better. I don't know. Did you have that there? I didn't.
No,
Okay.
I never had that.
Yeah.
It was very much later on before I actually found someone to do that. And I actually am like you, because of my experience not having a mentor
Yeah.
and not having people wanting to take that kind of interest. I've made it my goal to mentor others and to help others and to coach others where I can.
Yeah.
So definitely,
That's really cool.
mentoring is key. But if you don't find one, you've got litigation support guru. So there you go.
All right, let's catch up on some of the comments. Jigna she means stalker here. I accused Jigna of being my stalker because she was an attorney and she wanted to get into this field, and she's here local to me, and she was literally like coming to women in e-meetings and trying to get my attention, and then the best story I have is that she followed me all the way outside the building after the meeting was over, and we're on the sidewalk, and she's like, please, can I have a few minutes with you? I just want you to help me, and then she ended up taking some courses at Georgetown's paralegal program for legal tech, and now she's in our same role as you and me.
Awesome.
So Vanessa's saying thank you for LSG. And Vanessa's saying, very difficult to find affordable training without massive technical experience, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so Jigna's asking, where in Texas?
Houston.
And then she says, I'll be in Houston at the end of August. I welcome the opportunity to meet you in person.
Absolutely. Look me up. Seriously, I would love that.
And Christine's saying, you flew straight into the fire. What a great start.
Yes. I'm still burning up.
I mean, but that says something, though, that you you handled it as best you could, you know. I'm sure it
As
was
best I
hard.
could.
Yeah.
It was hard. I never gave up. I mean, a few times I thought I can go back and be a paralegal and ace it, but no. No, I
Did
sat
I
there.
really want this? Oh my God.
Exactly, exactly. And, I made the change in my 50s. I was 52. So you have that added element as well. You're working with a lot of younger people who,
Yeah.
may have not been in the space long as you, but they've done this longer than you.
Yeah.
So that was also a challenge. But I didn't give up.
Yeah. There's it's funny you mentioned that because there's a bunch of people that email me, and one of the first sentences in the email is, and then they put their age, like I'm mid 40s, I'm mid 50s, or, is it still possible? And it depends on the person's background, whether I say go for it or maybe not, but most of the time, yes, it's possible. Meryl, I'm thinking of you right now. Meryl might be watching. Okay, so then one thing I wanted to thank you for is that I still remember all those years ago is that you're a fiend on social media. So your handle is eDiscoveryFlash, and
Yes.
you are on Twitter and LinkedIn, and you were retweeting my stuff. You were sharing
Yes.
what I was sharing, and I really appreciate you for spreading the word. Even back then, that first year of LSG in existence. So thank you.
Yes. Yes, I still have a strong Twitter presence. I love it. That's how I learned. And, like you end up becoming friends or, virtual friends with a lot of your followers and people who've stuck with you throughout the years. And it's just really, really have been very valuable and helpful in my growth.
Yeah, I agree. I've had I have really cool friends today from a first tweet,
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Nicole's asking what your Twitter handle is again. You want to go ahead?
E-Discovery Flash. One word. E-Discovery Flash. Like news flash. It's an e-discovery flash.
Okay, so we decided that we were going to touch on this a little bit because I haven't talked about it in previous episodes. And that is the barriers or struggles of changing job titles within your firm. So you make a decision that you do want to make a change, and you're trying to make that change inside the firm you're already at, which Victoria, who's one of the people I mentored, was able to do last year, but most people can't. So can you talk a little bit about your experience with trying to do that?
Well, it is very difficult. You have to really, I think the key to this is seeking out the opportunities and getting buy-in. You got to, you talked about mentoring, maybe networking more within your organization, finding someone who could actually affect changes and help you to make those moves. But you really, I think, key to this is seeing those opportunities and seizing upon them. I met a young lady here in Houston, and she basically saw the opportunity and created her own role. And now she's pretty much running the entire e-discovery space for her entire firm in all their offices. And I think, for her as well, she saw the opportunity, she seized upon it, and she once again just went into that fire without any fear.
So I think in one of your first emails you told me that you thought you might go the paralegal manager route. Did you try that in your same firm that you were at? Or did you try to
No.
switch to lit support? Do they even have lit support?
I did try to switch to lit support, but I didn't, it was spotted right away. I had the interest, I just didn't have the skills. I think people are busy. And,
Yeah.
For you to just want to make that move and to ask them to take that time and sit with you an occasion and walk you through stuff. A lot of people don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
To shadow would have been an option for me. I didn't exercise that. Going into management, I realized that's not what I wanted to do. I really and truly wanted to become an e-discovery project manager. So it was just really, really difficult within my firm, which is part of the reason why I had to move outside and go somewhere else.
Right. Right. And now you've come full circle. You're back at a firm.
Yes. Yes. I'm very happy.
So you mentioned shadowing. We've talked about that in a couple of episodes before, but that's one thing that I try to advise people if they reach out to me is first I define what shadowing is, which is asking if you can watch somebody in lit support do their job, but don't talk. Like you're not allowed to. You should be there and take notes for for goodness sake, but don't interrupt their flow and then wait till later and ask some of your questions. But you're right. Lit support managers, in my experience, either have time, depending on how many people are on the team, depending on the skill levels of the team. Lit support managers have to make a decision. Can I hire a newbie right now, or can we not afford to hire a newbie, right? Because like you said,
Exactly.
people are too busy to actually get them up to speed. So yeah, sometimes you just have to go outside. Oh, so Victoria's saying hi. I just mentioned Victoria a little bit ago. She had been at her law firm in Philadelphia for 20 some odd years. And she was actually in more of a legal secretary slash paralegal position, but more legal secretary. And she came to me and said, I think I want to do lit support. And while I was helping her and teaching her and, getting her up to speed for a few months, an opportunity came up at her firm to get into a litigation paralegal position. And now she's doing sort of like you, a little bit of paralegal, obviously, but a lot of lit support stuff. So it was scary for her, and I'm sure it was scary for you after 20 some odd years to think about leaving a firm. I mean, you were at different firms. She was at one firm for 20 some odd years since she was 17 years old. So, but she's still there and she's happy. So it's pretty darn cool.
Awesome. That's a great story.
It is a great story. All right, so Leanne has a question for you. How do you get the hands-on experience required to sit for the relativity exam?
Well, you have to use Relativity, and they do offer a 3-day course where they basically prepare you for the exam. It's very comprehensive. I recommend taking it. Also, I know in Houston and in Chicago, they have Relativity users groups, and there you get to network with other people who are using Relativity and possibly maybe meet people who you can commensurate with and maybe sit with and go over information that may be contained on the test, create like your own study group, so to speak. So I would really suggest maybe starting there, trying to find when and where the Relativity user group meets in your city. And you can also go to Relativity's website where they list the contacts for those cities as well.
So for the hands-on, I think you have to have 90 days for depending on which relativity exam we're talking about, because there's 4 or 5 of them. But for the RCA, don't you have to have, do you know what the latest is? You have to have 90 days of admin, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the latest is, but you do have to have a set period of hands-on admin experience. And so how do you get that? I guess that's going back to your question.
Yeah.
You can download the RDC and some data from their website, which will give you that experience. They are a wonderful resource for at least getting the initial start on where you need to go in terms of getting that hands-on experience.
So you said it real fast, download the RDC. So she's talking about the remote desktop client.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. That's my job to break it down. So the remote desktop client is the thing that allows you to upload data and export data out. So here we go, Victoria. Terrifying, but you helped me with my confidence so much. And that was the big thing for her. She could do it. I was giving her like little tasks to do, and she was coming right back and saying, what next, So she had the skill set, similar to you, but did she have the confidence? So by just hanging out with me for a few months, it was only a few months, it was like 4 months, when she went into the interview, she literally sat there in front of the office manager and, had a different level of confidence just from me pumping her up and telling her she could do this, which I enjoy doing so much. Okay, so back to your story. I wanted to touch on this, and you sort of did already, but one extra point here is, working for service providers. I asked you what it was like, but we just had somebody earlier saying that they were 10 years on the service provider side and then went to the law firm side. Did you find that when you switched from law firm to service provider that you could leverage your law firm experience, to speak to the client? Yeah.
Yes, because I understood why they wanted something done. Yeah. So not so much as, of course we understand the litigation life cycle. That helps too because, as a paralegal, you're actually in the weeds during every phase of the cycle. But when I became a project manager and my clients would make requests of me, I clearly understood the reasoning as to why they needed something. So I was better able to direct my tech team in terms of how to create those deliverables and what needed to be presented to them. And also I knew what kind of questions to ask my clients because I had that involvement on their side of the table, so to speak. So I knew what kind of questions to ask just to make certain that we were clear on our instructions. Very helpful to have.
Very well said. I mean, there's such an advantage, I think, to having worked with a legal team. Like, even if you're a service provider, you work on the service provider side, and you, quote, talk to the attorney, that's not the same as what you and I have experienced, which is getting the phone call, going down to the associate's office, everybody hanging out in the associate's office, and sort of brainstorming on what we're going to do, how we're going to use the database, how we're going to do the doc review, all those little, what I call just legal team, discussions. We definitely have an advantage. You said it very well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I want you to share about your latest job and how you got it, because you were telling me offline that, oh, here we go, somebody from Houston. Alina?
Oh, hi.
So the job you have now, I remember checking in with you, or actually when you updated your LinkedIn profile and you were back in Houston, I was like, okay, what happened, and you were saying that your daughter, I think you said your daughter was going to school there, so it made sense for you to make that move. But now you're back at the law firm, back on the law firm side, and you were telling me that it just sort of fell in your lap, so to speak. You want to tell the story and tell him exactly what you told me about. Just tell the story.
Okay, so the transition, so the move to Houston got me back into the law firm. So I ended up working for a very large, wonderful law firm here in Houston. I was very happy. I was back doing what I wanted to do. Exactly, e-discovery project manager in a law firm. I got a call from a recruiter who wanted to tell me about this wonderful, magical firm similar to Bartlett Beck. And the first time he called, I hung up on him. I hate cold calls.
Yep.
How did you get my name? I'm not even remotely interested. I love the people I work with. And he was very persistent. And then of course I'm thinking, okay, I'm still not interested. So I threw it out there to him. I said, I'm looking for a firm where everybody is happy. I want to work with lawyers and staff who are very friendly, and it's all kumbaya, and we love each other, and we work well together, knowing that no such thing exists. However, he was persistent, and he sent me here, and I met my direct boss, and she was all these wonderful things that I described. And
what role was she in? What?
She's the office manager, and she is the direct hire or over all the staff, and I'm considered part of staff. Right?
Gotcha. So
she was wonderful. She had a great personality, very upbeat. And I went for 2 more interviews, same thing. And I'm like, now that I work here, I honestly can say same thing. So I'm very happy that he was persistent.
So you're in a kumbaya environment?
I really am. I really am. The paralegals here, the attorneys, they're all, they value my role here. They include me. I'm in a position where I can start something from the ground up.
Yeah, why don't you describe what the role was? You skipped that part.
So I am the only e-discovery project manager, e-discovery person in this firm. Yeah. So my role is all encompassing. I am included in the beginning with dealing with forensics all the way out to production. My role also expanded to include soliciting bids from vendors and trying to come up with some solid pricing for my firm, vetting vendors for my firm, listening to the needs of these case teams and understanding the types of services that they will need or the kinds of services that will be best suited for them. I have to work on budgets now. I hate math, I hate numbers, but it's a situation where now I have to do that. I have to come up with e-discovery budget calculators. And I thank Chris Wasserman. I want to just give him a shout out for that, for helping me. But once again, my virtual friends are always the ones who come to my aid and my rescue.
Chris and I did a podcast episode together that's one of my most popular podcast episodes because of the content that we shared. And then you just told me before we went live that you used to work for Jay Salter, who was also a guest on the show. Small world.
I did.
Yeah.
It was. And she looked great, by the way.
I will let her know you said that. Here's Reth talking about our previous. It's definitely not the same from the vendor side to talking directly to the case team. Yeah. I'm sure that if you've been on, I mean, I have been in this position where you switch from the law firm side to the vendor side, and then you don't have that access, and you can't have that conversation. It feels off. It feels weird.
It does. You kind of miss it too, because you're like, I know exactly how that worked. And, you do miss it. So I'm very glad to be back involved in that.
When we had the summer paralegal program at Georgetown, so I was there 5.5 years, and that included, 5 summers. And they had a summer intensive program where you could do the whole year-long program in 12 weeks. But you had to move there and do it full time. And at the end of the 3 months, you got a 1-month internship at a firm or anywhere they could, get permission for you to come, right? So I hosted a couple of students over the years, and I did the shadowing thing because I said, come with me, and we're going to go talk to an attorney. We're going to go down to their office, and you're going to see what it's like to have these conversations you and I are talking about. I said, but literally stand, don't sit. Because I wanted to leave the chairs open for, the legal team. I said, stand up against the wall and don't say a thing. And then they'll let me keep doing it, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
But it was so valuable to get that experience.
I agree.
Okay, Jigna's asking a technical question. What are the new analytical tools is your firm leveraging? Do you have a question? Do you have an answer?
I do have an answer. We do near duplications. Near dupe analytics a lot. We do exact dupes. We do email threading. Pretty much everything except for TAR. We've not really found a role for that yet. Plus, it's a little expensive. But analytical tools, we do domains, the cluster wheels, all that good stuff. Very helpful to case teams trying to disseminate large volumes of information and data.
Yeah. Okay. Good question, Jigna. She was testing you.
I see.
But I like this new role. I'm excited for you because you weren't looking for it. You wanted to work at a kumbaya firm with nice people.
Yes.
And you've been there since November, and it's still exactly what you wanted it to be. And you can create something. I know what that's like to create a team or a service for the firm. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And it's not what I dreamed of when I first went into this area. Never thought this would be a role that would be available to me.
Aw. Okay, so let's end with you sharing 3 tips of advice for people that are thinking about making a career change.
Well, if you're thinking about making a career change, I think you should do it. Don't be afraid. Just come up with a plan. Stick to your plan. If you get a little hiccup along the way, adjust, modify, and just continue on. Do it, and don't be afraid. And now you can reach out to me and Amy.
Okay. If you guys have anything else to add, the comments have a delay, so go ahead and do that. I'm going to thank Adrienne for saying yes when I asked her to come on the show, because this is my first time having a conversation with her that's not in text. So it was a lot of fun. I'm so glad to see you. I wish I could give you a hug. So next week, as I mentioned in the pre-show, next week we have Mike Coe coming on, who's an attorney who decided to get into trial presentation, and he's been doing some really cool things, and I want him to share that with you. He's sharing his knowledge, which of course is near and dear to my heart. Okay, let's see if we have any last minute questions coming in or anything. All right, so there's a delay in the comments. I'll just answer them once the show's over. But thank you so much, Adrienne. And everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you right back here next Friday.
Well, thank you. Bye, everyone.